We're recording again, anyways. Right, so I hate doing beginnings. Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Simon of Savage Reads, and today I'm back with my mum.
Again!
Because we're laughing because we've literally just filmed the previous video to this. You've probably seen a couple of weeks ago. But we're going to be talking. In fact, actually, we've done 4 videos this weekend. And a live.
I'm exhausted. I'm not coming to stay again.
She's not. These are the Women's Prize winners, number 17 to 20. I've got my maths right this time. I always say on my channel I'm rubbish at maths, all right with words. So we're just going to crack on. But as always, we would love your thoughts on these books in the comments down below. So first up, and this could be one that causes the first fisticuffs in a video that we've ever done, because it's the Sum of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which I read before it was up for the Women's Prize, and absolutely loved. But this will make you laugh. I went in very begrudgingly, because everyone was telling me how amazing this book was, and I was like, oh, classics. Because, no offence to Mum, she's a classicist, but just to get the story straight on why I went off classics, I studied classics in year 7. I did really well in it, but because my mum taught classics at the school, everyone thought I'd cheated. So, yeah, so it put me right off.
That's not fair.
Put me off. So I dropped it. But Mum had always told me myths and legends as a kid. So it's obviously there within me, and I think it was just me fighting against, as a teenager, anything my mum liked. I was like, well, bog off, I'm not getting into it then. However, I read this and it brought every single love of that back.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
I was completely swept away by it. It was Natalie Haynes that told me to read this.
Yeah, good on you, Natalie.
And it just captivated me. I thought the love story was beautiful. I thought I just have such fond memories. I couldn't put it down. It was like an adventure story. Now, we should also tell another story of where we did a podcast. I used to do a podcast called The Readers, and we used to do a book club. We would get the author on, and me and Gavin, who was my co-presenter at the time, had Madeline Miller on, and I got Mum on because I was like, oh, she's going to love this. We started recording with Mum, and her response was, not a fan. So, Mum, over to you.
Well, only because, and it's unfair, this really, because the story is based on the Iliad. It's based on Achilles and his friend Patroclus, and that relationship is very central to the story of the Iliad. And I've been teaching that text for years and know it very, very intimately. And I've read novels, you come across lots and lots of interpretations. And for me, my problem with it is that it focuses on something that just isn't that important to me, which is the nature of the relationship between the two of them.
But I think that to me is really interesting.
It didn't... I don't know. I can't. It's something that I really can't put my finger on. But it just didn't.
Well, there's a lot of
fit
discussion.
With we all carry a version of these characters in our heads, and it didn't fit with my version of Achilles, and it didn't fit with my version of Patroclus. And there's nothing wrong with that, because
everyone's
got their own,
yeah.
and I'm not precious about reinterpreting classical myth at all. It just simply didn't work for me, and I don't think that's a fault of Madeline Miller, because I absolutely loved Circe. I thought that was superb, but we know less about Circe.
Right. Okay.
So I think, and there are lots and lots of classicists who absolutely adore it. So I think it's just for me, it just didn't work. And
there is a big debate about, people have a huge debate, don't they, about Achilles and Patroclus and what their relationship was or wasn't. And she's obviously chosen it to be a homosexual love story. But to me, that added so much more to it, especially because the pairing of them is so not what you would expect in the LGBT community necessarily. Yeah. And I love the fact that she really played with all those stereotypes. But it's interesting because I've noticed in other books, sometimes people just say they were very close friends and stuff, and it doesn't really bother me at all. But I think this book, you have to believe in that relationship for it to hook you in. Yeah, otherwise you will be lost to it.
And I think it's really lovely to hear you talk about it like that, because it wasn't, I was so busy sort of unstitching
all the versions of Achilles.
Yeah, that's right, that it was exhausting.
Whereas for me, it came through as I didn't really know that much about them. I knew that there was a Trojan horse involved at some point. And also that, I love his mother in this.
Thetis.
Yeah, every time Thetis turns up, and she speaks like gravel grating, and all those stuff. And that I thought was amazing. And also what I loved was there are gods and goddesses in this, but it's not ridiculous. She's very good at making it feel incredibly real that literally his mum could come straight out of the water, and So I loved this. Mum sadly didn't. So we'll all move on. We'll all move on. I agree with The Guardian. It's an exciting, sexy, violent Superman version of the Iliad. So there we go. Now, I don't have the next book, so I'm holding up a different book by that author. I don't know where my copy's gone. I had it in paperback. This is...
I haven't nicked it, honest.
Jack by A.M. Holmes didn't win the Women's Prize, but May We Be Forgiven did. Now, this book I have a very interesting relationship with, because I remember really enjoying the beginning, and then it's sort of petering off for me a little bit, but I have a theory behind that, but I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, I would agree with that. I loved the first 2/3 of the novel, and then we moved to a different location, and I didn't need to do that. It kind of spoilt it for me, but that aside, it's one of the few books that I've read in the last 12 months that has made me laugh out loud. I just thought there are scenes in there. I mean, the opening and her...
She's got a wicked sense of humour.
Oh my God, the way she writes. She can just... You're reading this description and then she'll suddenly plant a sentence and you're belly laughing. It's a bit like listening to a comedian. You know, when they throw in the punchline and you're not expecting it necessarily.
It's very dry and wry and wicked.
It is, it is really wicked. So I absolutely love the way she writes. And interestingly, my husband, who is a reader but doesn't read as prolifically perhaps as we do, he read it after me because, you know, he's fed up with the belly laughing, wanted to know what all that was about, and he really loved it, really enjoyed it. And I don't think the ending did great on him particularly.
Oh, that's interesting. We should say it's about two brothers, and one of them is having an affair with the other's wife, and we meet them when they're all together, and then something really dark. Really dark. And you are on the edge of your seat. But I also felt like that there's a few books I've read where moments like that happen, and I do worry as soon as I've read it, because I'm like, is the book going to keep up to it? And for me, it just didn't. Now, what I learnt after reading it, which made a lot of sense, is that it actually was a short story. And that first segment was the short story, and then she went and wrote a novel about it. Okay. So I think that's possibly why maybe the proportion wasn't quite there.
But I loved all the stuff, like all the way through the interaction between the two brothers. Just phenomenal. And also the one brother's relationship with the other brother's children. I mean, that is fabulous. And the children in this novel are wiser than the adults.
Yes.
And I really loved that. I loved the way that the children were shaping and moulding the central character. I thought that was a delight to me, especially because I spend most of my time with teenagers, and I know how wonderful they are and how they, you know, how thoughtful and responsible they can be. Teenagers get a really bad press. So for me, it was wonderful sort of reading that in a novel.
Well,
and it's quite rare. You don't see it very much.
They're wiser, but also I suppose there's more hope in them as well, because while all this chaotic stuff is going on with...
But they're also kind of organising things, and why don't we do this? And, you know, it's their sort of their untarnished view of the world, despite the awful things that have happened, that I just found... Yeah, I loved it.
I don't think it's... Like, I probably am sounding like I thought it was a bad book, and I didn't at all. I just remember feeling that immediate propulsion just slowly but surely sort of petered out, and then that last third, like you said, I just didn't quite...
I think that's fair. I would say that the pace, I did get a little bit, felt like we were on a bit of a... Like, the pace didn't really change very much in the second half of the novel. And as I say, I would happily have done without the change of location in the last third of the book.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't necessary, but I'm keen to read other books of hers.
Yeah, which is interesting because I haven't, and actually just reading the back of Jack, it sounds amazing. Jack is a teenager who wants nothing more than to be normal, even if being normal means having divorced parents and a rather strange best friend. But when Jack's father takes him out on a rowboat on Lake Watchmayoyo and tells his son he's gay, nothing will ever be normal again. out of Jack's struggle to define what family means, A.M. Holmes crafts a novel of enormous humour, charm and resonance. The most convincingly funny and insightful novel about adolescence in The Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye isn't that good, so this will probably be better.
I don't like Catcher in the Rye.
I think The Catcher in the Rye is a book we're all meant to love.
Yeah, it's
because we're told to love it.
view.
Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, but that sounds great. I might read that quite soon. So, penultimately for this video is Eimear McBride's A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, which when I read this, again, this was before it was up for the Women's Prize. Imagine, once upon a time, I was ahead of the game. I got this because Galley Beggar Press are a really small press. I know Sam and his wife who run it really well. We also actually at one point bid for the same house once. Imagine that. So anyway, they had published this and I'd heard really unusual things because it is the most unusually written book I think I've ever read. It's a stream of consciousness. It's kind of poetic, but like it starts off with, for you'll give her name in the stitches of her skin she'll wear, you'll say, mammy me, yes you, bounce the bed, I'd say that's what you did, then lay you down, they cut you round, wait an hour and day. But I could not stop reading this book.
That's great.
Once I had to read it out loud for a bit.
Oh, did
and
you?
Then, yeah, and then once I read it out loud, I got it and I was into it. But it's, I mean, trigger warnings, it deals with some incredibly difficult subject matter around sexual abuse. And also around the health of the main character's brother, which is really, really hard to read. Yeah. But I've never, I think I can actually, I'm going to say this, I've never read a book that so has this just constant propulsion that is pure emotion. It's like rage, anger, heartache, all those emotions, vroom. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I don't think I've got an awful lot to add to that. You know, you might read the first few pages and think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to cope with this. But actually, it's so clever the way you get sucked in. And I know that she had an awful problem getting this published.
Oh, she did. Yeah, she got turned down loads of
so
publishers.
many times, and I'm so pleased that it did see the light of day because it's a masterpiece, I think. And again, it's a masterpiece in the creation of a voice. Yeah, it's not like any other voice in literature that I've read. Yeah, and it's really moving and disturbing and...
But you can't stop,
clever.
I think, once you start it. And I also would recommend it as a sort of book. Give yourself like a day to just sit down with it and go for it, because I think that's what you almost need to read it in the proportion in which...
you do.
Because I think if you spent too long with it, it could be too much. Yeah. I'd also recommend... Eimear McBride was on the podcast that I used to, it's no longer in existence, called You Wrote the Book, and she read the beginning. If you think this isn't going to work, either read it out loud like I said I did, or go and listen to her on YouTube or somewhere reading it, because it gets you into that. I haven't read her latest novel. I read The Lesser Bohemians, which was her second novel, and was long listed for the Women's Prize, I think. And that was also really interesting. So she's really, really an author to get to. But and again, the Irish lilt. Yeah, all of that is in there, and it's just so beautifully done. But I just think it's incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Yeah. And also, sorry, I'm wanging on now, but I went and saw the one-woman show of this. Oh, okay. Ridiculous! It's like an hour and a half, no break, and it's just one woman, and she tells. It went on tour, and it was just phenomenal. Wow. So yeah, would really, 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 really recommend that. Now on to the final of this selection, which is Ali Smith's How to Be Both, which is the 20th winner of the prize, if my maths are correct. Now, How to Be Both is a tricky one because it depends which way you start it. So my edition starts with Camera, which there's a modern storyline about a young person, I'm going to say, called George. And then in the second half, but the first half for other people, it is an artist.
It's called I, isn't it? I think the second half.
Yes. Now, when is it? I can't remember when it's based.
It's Renaissance, is it?
Is it?
Or is it earlier?
1460. Yeah, Renaissance. A Renaissance artist of the 1940s. And then George is set in the 1960s. 1490s, sorry, yeah. Told you in a previous video, I'm not very good with... I'm rewriting the book. I've changed it completely and it goes how I want the end. So, now I remember when I read this, I thought this was brilliant, and I thought the idea behind it was brilliant, and the fact that you could pick up and does the story change if you're told it in different orders and all the things. But what I'm beginning to realise, and I know this has kind of bothered a few people because I am a big Ali Smith fan, is since There But For There, I struggle, once I've read an Ali Smith, to remember very much about it, other than there's either some incredible not gimmick, that's not fair, an incredible
plot. Well, it's structural.
Device.
Yeah.
There's an incredible device within there. I always remember that. I absolutely love how she plays with words. Like, I will laugh, I'll get certain jokes, and she'll use certain words and certain. And I just think she is masterful with language. But I do sort of afterwards I'm a bit like, and it's just happened with the seasonal quartet, where I look back at it and I think that was such a good idea, you know, writing this quartet of books as they happened. But I look back and I'm like, I can't really remember autumn.
No, I mean, I would agree with that. It kind of, it doesn't wash over you. That's not right.
It goes in.
But I think it's because, again, it's not plot driven at all, is it?
But it kind of is.
It's more an exploration of people and ideas, and I don't know.
Plot driven in terms of the ripples of what happens between the past and present.
Yeah, I
there are
suppose
ripples.
so, but it's not, you know, you're not on the edge of your seat waiting to find out what happens next, are you? It's not that kind of read.
No. But
it's more like
sort
the
of
effect of reading poetry. It's more like you were saying, it's the wordsmithery and the sort of enjoying the toying with language and that kind of thing. That I like you, I enjoy the experience of reading it, but it doesn't stay with me. Yeah.
And I think that's like, I mean, I think this is a deserving winner because it does something I've not experienced before. Like I said, I remember some really lovely dialogue pieces between George and their mother. Like, there were certain things like that, and also some of the twists on expectation in the 1460s to get the right year this time.
Or even 90s.
No, that was... Is it the 14... No, it was the 1460s.
All right.
The 1460s and the 1960s, okay? So... It says on the blurb, so it's true.
I'm feeling frightened. That book is far too close to my head. It's a hardback.
I didn't think this was the book we were going to fight over, frankly. But I think there were some really clever things around the revealing of art, the nature of art. But also sometimes I do think with Ali Smith, because she's so into art, I think sometimes there are certain authors, and I'm going to say this about Ali Smith because I felt like it's about quite a few of the books in the quartet as well. If you don't know the artist, that's quite alienating. If you don't know the exact depiction of it, and you don't necessarily have Google, because we can't assume everyone has. I mean, not everyone in the world can get YouTube, for example. But do you know what I mean? I think that can be quite alienating. I found that in Quartet with a few authors and writers and thinkers and filmmakers that I didn't know, because I think with her characters are
You're
there.
talking about the danger, aren't you, of too many cultural references?
Yeah.
That happened when I read, what was the novel we read for the Women's Prize, where there were lots of cultural references that I didn't get because it was your peer group.
Ordinary People.
Yeah.
And I think with Ali Smith, it can be about all sorts of things, and that's because she's such a brain, and she's so into art, and she's so, you know, I don't know much about Bob Harris. I will say I want to go off and read more about them, but I just think it distances it from me, and therefore sometimes I feel like, and this is where I'm saying, since There But For There, and she's gone off into these more arty sort of books, that's where maybe a distance with me and Ali Smith has happened, because I feel like I only really get 2/3 of the book.
Right, yeah, okay.
So, yeah. But I think I wanted this to win the year that it won. But yeah.
I'm sure you did, because I remember you pushing it my way and saying you must read this.
But I think that's not, but I don't think...
And have you read it yet, Mum?
Yeah.
Mum, have you read that book yet?
Have you read it?
Which I get a lot.
But I just... Yeah, but I kind of think it's interesting that, and it's something that I don't think you have to remember a book forever. No. You can enjoy having that moment. That I just remember enjoying reading it, and that's grand. So there we go. So that is book 17. 19, I
think.
Can't do maths.
No, 20.
That was book 20. So we've done books 16 to 20.
Yeah, 16 to 20.
No, 17 to 20.
Oh, we're both useless. It's not your fault, it's Eugene's.
We'll be back very soon with books 21 to 24. As we record this, we don't know what the 25th winner is, but obviously by now we all will, as this goes live. Not long. Well, it'll have happened by the time this goes live.
Oh, yeah.
It'll have been and gone. We'll be on to the next one. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Let us know your thoughts on these books, as always, in the comments down below. And until my next video, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me as well.
Until her next video. We'll speak to you all soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Gotta give them like a little cake to take with
I'll
them.
send an email.
That was a bit like, take care, would you like to take this cake with you as well? Goodbye.